Apartment security attacks black woman's son. She gets the entire management fired. The scream tore through the courtyard like a whip crack. "Get off of me!" Jamal's voice echoed, shrill and panicked, through the manicured hedges of Crestview Heights. The 13-year-old boy thrashed wildly beneath the weight of a grown man twice his size, apartment security guard Brett Harlan, who had tackled him onto the concrete pathway just outside Building D. Jamal's backpack lay several feet away, its contents, school books, a half-eaten granola bar, and a shattered phone, spilled across the pavement like an accusation. "I said stay down," Brett barked, knee grinding into the boy's back. "What are you doing on this property?" Jamal choked on his own breath. "I live here." That only made Brett press harder. "Lying to a security officer. That's cute." Across the lot, the metallic click of heels broke into a sprint. "Get your damn hands off my son!" Simone Pierce's voice was thunder. She was dressed in tailored slacks and a fitted black blazer. She had just come back from a meeting downtown, but in that moment, she looked more like a bolt of fury. Her arms swung with intention as she raced toward them. "Ma'am, back off. He was trespassing." "He's 13, and we've lived here for 6 months," she snapped, shoving past another guard who had started moving toward her. "Check the tenant list, apartment 4C. Brett barely glanced up. "He didn't have an ID." "He's a minor, and you slammed him to the ground over what, brown skin and a hoodie?" Jamal whimpered as she knelt beside him. His elbow was scraped raw. His lip bled. Simone cradled his head gently and stared daggers at Brett. "Call your supervisor," she said, voice flat. "Now." But Brett didn't move. "Now," she repeated, slower. Instead, Brett pulled out a walkie-talkie. "Control, we've got an incident. Possible suspect detained by Building D. No ID. Claims to live here." "He's not a suspect." "He's a child," Simone hissed. By the time 2 police cruisers rolled in 15 minutes later, the building's front lawn was lined with spectators. Residents peeking from balconies, kids frozen mid-basketball game, dog walkers standing still. Word had spread quickly. Simone stood with her arms folded, fire barely contained beneath her calm exterior. An officer approached her. Officer Jensen, a short white man with mirrored sunglasses that reflected her glare. "Ma'am, can we talk over here?" "No. We're not going to the side. We're talking here, out loud, where everyone can hear." Jensen gave a tight smile. "According to the report, your son matched a description of someone seen breaking into mailboxes last week." "Do you realize how ridiculous that sounds?" Simone shot back. "That's the excuse now? A vague description that just so happens to match a black kid walking home from school?" "Ma'am, No, you're not just anything," she interrupted. "You're part of the problem. He had his school ID in his backpack. You want to look at it? Or would you prefer to pretend it doesn't exist?" Jensen blinked. The other officers shifted uncomfortably. Jamal, still shaken, was now sitting on the curb holding a cold water bottle a neighbor had brought him. He looked smaller than he had that morning, like the air had been knocked out of more than just his lungs. A tall, older black woman in a janitorial uniform approached Simone. "This ain't the first time," the woman muttered quietly. Simone turned. "Excuse me. I clean the East Wing. I've seen that guard, Brett, stop kids just like yours all the time, but he never puts hands on the white ones." Simone's jaw tightened. She took out her phone and hit record. "Can you say that again, please?" The woman glanced around nervously. "They watch us." "They need to watch what's coming," Simone said, "because they messed with the wrong boy." That night, Simone sat on the edge of her son's bed, stroking his braids gently while he stared at the ceiling. "I'm sorry," Jamal whispered. "I should have just turned around when he yelled." "Don't say that. You did nothing wrong. You walked home. That's all." He turned his head, eyes glassy. "He looked at me like I was trash, like I wasn't supposed to exist here." Simone's voice cracked. "That's how people like him are trained to see us, baby. but they don't get to decide our worth. Outside the window, the soft hum of traffic buzzed against the building. Simone's hands trembled, but her voice steadied. They thought they could intimidate us into silence, she said. But tomorrow I remind them exactly who I am. Jamal blinked. Who are you? She smiled and kissed his forehead. You'll see. Down the hallway, in a locked drawer beneath some tax papers and old lease forms, lay Simone's state bar license, untouched since she moved into Crestview Heights. No one in the building knew she had spent 10 years as a federal civil rights prosecutor. She hadn't told anyone because she wanted a fresh start. She didn't want to be that woman again. But now she had no choice. Later that night, Brett sat in the guard booth watching clips of himself go viral on Twitter. He cursed under his breath. In the corner of the screen, Simone's voice was crystal clear. That's my son. And you're going to regret ever touching him. He scoffed. She's bluffing. He had no idea just how wrong he was. And tomorrow, the war would begin. The morning after the assault, Crestview Heights looked deceptively peaceful. Birds chirped over hedges, sprinklers ticked rhythmically across the lawn. But inside apartment 4C, the tension was thick enough to slice with a knife. Simone Pierce stood in her kitchen staring at her laptop. Her fingers trembled as she clicked through documents. Tenant rights, statutes, assault case precedents, Fair Housing Act clauses, all bookmarked from her years working federal civil rights litigation. Jamal sat silently at the dining table, spooning cereal without looking up. He hadn't said more than 3 words since waking. Are you sure you want to do this? He asked softly. Simone looked at him. I don't have a choice. His eyes were heavy. You always have a choice. That's what you told me last year. She walked over and crouched beside him. This isn't just about us anymore. If we let this slide, they'll do it to the next black kid who walks through that gate with a hoodie and a backpack. He nodded slowly, though she could tell the fear hadn't left him. The bruise on his elbow had darkened overnight. Simone stood, her voice quiet but firm. We fight with facts, with law, and with truth, just like I taught people to do for a decade. The elevator ride down to the leasing office felt longer than usual. Simone held a manila folder in one hand, copies of their lease, Jamal's ID, photographs of his injuries. As the doors opened, she was met with a front desk receptionist who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. I need to speak to the building manager, immediately. The receptionist blinked. Ma'am, Mr. Nolan isn't in yet. Call him, Simone said. I'm not leaving. 5 minutes later, the manager, Rick Nolan, appeared. His tie half knotted and his hair still damp from the shower. Ms. Pierce, he said, smiling too widely, I heard about the little situation yesterday. What an unfortunate misunderstanding. Simone didn't return the smile. That misunderstanding was your security guard pinning my son to the pavement and calling the cops without justification. Rick raised both hands. Look, I get it. You're upset. But our guards are instructed to approach anyone who doesn't produce ID, especially after recent vandalism. You mean the vandalism that just so happens to be blamed on every black kid within a mile radius? Simone fired back. Rick hesitated. That's not what I said. No, she replied, but it's exactly what you meant. She slid the folder across his desk. This is a formal complaint. You'll find attached video evidence, testimony from witnesses, and a request for full incident documentation. I expect a written response within 48 hours. Rick's eyes scanned the folder. You're a lawyer? Not anymore, Simone lied. But I know the law, and I know when someone's trying to hide behind a badge they don't deserve to wear. Ms. Pierce, Rick said, trying to keep his voice calm, let's not escalate things. These kinds of incidents can go away quietly if we all just take a breath. Simone's smile was ice. Quiet is what let this happen in the first place. Back upstairs, Simone's phone buzzed. A text from her old friend and former colleague, Leah Griffin, lit up the screen. Leah, I saw the video. Is that Jamal? Simone, yes. Leah, holy hell, you want me to pull some strings? Civil Rights Unit is still full of your fans. Simone stared at the screen for a long moment before typing. Simone, not yet. I want to see how deep this rot goes first. She didn't know then how right she was to suspect it ran deeper than Brett. By the end of the day, she had uncovered 2 more complaints, both involving kids of color being stopped by security without cause. Neither had been documented in the tenant system. But an elderly couple in Building E remembered a 12-year-old Hispanic boy being detained last summer for acting suspicious. There was no report, the wife whispered through the door when Simone visited. They just told his parents to drop it, or they'd risk eviction. As she stood outside the couple's apartment, Simone's phone rang again. This time it was Jamal's school. She braced herself. Miss Pierce, this is Principal Warren. Jamal didn't show up to 3rd period. Simone's heart skipped. What? We've checked with the nurse and the lunchroom. His attendance was confirmed this morning, but he never arrived at his 11:30 class. Within minutes, she was in her car, speeding through side streets, calling Jamal's phone over and over, straight to voicemail. Her mind raced. What if they followed him? What if this wasn't over? She was halfway to the school when her phone lit up with an unknown number. Miss Pierce? A nervous voice asked. Yes? This is Sam. I work maintenance at Crestview. Your son's in the basement laundry room. I found him there, sitting behind the dryers. He said not to call anyone, but I recognized him from the video. Thought you should know. Simone made a hard U-turn and sped back. The moment she saw Jamal curled up against the wall, headphones on, knees hugged to his chest, she knelt beside him and wrapped her arms around him. I thought I was safe there, he said quietly. No cameras, no guards, just quiet. Her voice cracked. Baby, you don't have to hide. Not here. Not ever again. He looked up at her. Then help me fight. That night, she pulled out her old laptop, plugged in the hard drive she hadn't touched in 3 years, and opened a document titled Civil Rights Complaint Framework. It was a blueprint she'd used during her time investigating housing discrimination cases at the Department of Justice. She began building a new case against Crestview Heights, its management, and the private security firm that employed Brett Harlan. This wasn't going to be a polite complaint. It was going to be a firestorm. And by the time she was done, no one in charge would be left standing. Simone wasn't just fighting for her son anymore. She was fighting for every voice that had been silenced in those pristine, gated courtyards. The next morning, Crestview Heights buzzed like a nest of hornets. Whispers followed Simone as she walked Jamal to the car. Neighbors she'd barely spoken to gave her polite nods, while others simply stared, avoiding eye contact. Word had spread fast. At the school drop-off, Jamal hesitated. His hand lingered on the car door handle. Are you sure this is gonna work? He asked, eyes searching hers for certainty. Simone met his gaze. I don't know yet, but I won't stop until it does. He nodded slowly, and she watched him disappear into the crowd of students. She clenched the steering wheel. This fight couldn't just be about retribution. It had to be about setting something right. Back home, she called Leah Griffin. I need access to the security firm's license records, staff list, and incident logs. Leah, still a senior analyst in the Civil Rights Division, whistled through the phone. You really diving into this, huh? Full dive. Can you help? Already on it. You've got fire in your voice again. Feels like the Simone I knew from D.C. That Simone never had a son to protect, she said, her voice softening. Within an hour, Leah sent over files. Simone scrolled through documents showing that the firm managing Crestview Security, Vanguard Protection Services, had a long list of complaints filed across several states, racial profiling, excessive force, failure to train properly. Most were quietly settled, sealed behind NDAs. Then she saw it. Brett Harlan's name. Previously employed at Glen Ridge Towers. Suspended pending investigation for misconduct. Case closed. Employee voluntarily resigned. Simone leaned back, heart pounding. They knew. She opened a new file and began drafting her legal complaint, this time addressed to the State Attorney General's Civil Rights Bureau. She cited precedent, referenced video evidence, and embedded a detailed timeline. But something was missing. She needed someone from inside. That's when she remembered Sam, the maintenance worker who'd called her about Jamal. She found him outside Building D, fixing a leaking pipe near the back lot. "You saved my son," she said, walking up to him. He looked up, startled. "I just did what was right. I need your help again." His eyes darted around. "Ma'am, I can't. I've got a kid and a mortgage." "I'm not asking you to go public," she said quickly. "Just tell me what you've seen, off record." Sam hesitated, then stood. "You got 5 minutes." They sat behind the shed, out of sight. He pulled out a worn notepad. "This place, it's not what you think. Security here, they don't just profile kids. Last year, they dragged a black delivery driver out the back gate because he didn't have a badge, broke his wrist, got paid off to stay quiet. Anyone document it?" He handed her a photo of an incident report with half the lines redacted. "I copied this before it got deleted. I saw them shred the original." Simone's pulse surged. "Who else knows?" "Maybe Diane from Building H. She works nights. Heard her say she saw Brett yelling at a tenant once. Told her to go back where she came from. You ask me, that guy's got a temper." Simone's mind raced. Patterns, witnesses, evidence. They weren't just isolated events. This was systemic. But the twist came later that evening. She received a call from Jamal's school again. "This is Principal Warren. I need to inform you that Child Protective Services came by this afternoon. They asked about Jamal's home environment." "What?" Simone froze. "Who filed the report?" "I'm not allowed to say, but off the record, it came from someone listing themselves as a resident of your apartment complex." She gripped the edge of the counter. "They're trying to intimidate me." "I'm sorry, the social worker didn't find any cause for concern, but they had to open a file. They'll be contacting you." Simone sat down hard. This wasn't just retaliation, it was calculated sabotage. Someone wanted to scare her into silence, and they knew exactly how to hit her where it hurt most. But they'd made a mistake. They thought she'd back down. Instead, Simone went on offense. That night, she recorded a video. No filters, no edits, just her sitting at her kitchen table. "My name is Simone Pierce. I'm a mother, a tenant, and I'm done being silent." She detailed what happened to Jamal, what she'd uncovered. The complaints, the threats, the retaliation. She didn't reveal her background as a former DOJ investigator. Yet, she wanted this fight to be about what was right, not who she was. Within 12 hours, the video had 100,000 views. Within 24 hours, a local news station contacted her for an interview. But even as Simone prepared for the next step, she felt a chill run through her. Because across town, in an office lined with security monitors and legal briefings, someone else was watching that video too, and he wasn't smiling. Brett Harlan sat in a darkened room, eyes fixed on the screen. "She's not backing off," he muttered. Next to him, Rick Nolan poured himself a drink. "What do we do?" Brett cracked his knuckles. "We remind her who runs this building." They didn't know Simone had already started drafting a civil suit against both of them. But they would. Very soon. The silence at Crestview Heights was different now. It wasn't peace, it was pressure. Every footstep Simone took was met with eyes behind blinds, glances through peepholes, whispered speculation from stairwells. Her video had stirred something deep. Neighbors who once ignored her now watched her like a symbol of rebellion, or a warning. Jamal stayed close. He was quieter at school, more withdrawn at home, always checking the locks twice before bed. "They're not gonna come back, right?" he asked one night, standing by her bedroom door. "No, baby," she said, pulling him into her arms. "Not while I'm breathing." But the next morning a letter was taped to her door. Lease review setting. Non-compliance allegations. Her stomach dropped. She ripped it open and read the accusations. Unauthorized media exposure damaging to property value, creating hostile conditions for staff, and failure to report disturbances. "This is a joke," she muttered. No, it was retaliation, crafted with precision. Simone paced the kitchen. "They're trying to evict us. They're cornered. That means they're desperate." She dialed Leah. "They're fabricating lease violations now," Simone said. "They're baiting you. They want you rattled enough to slip." "Well, I'm not. But I need more than social media. I need pressure from the top. I've got a contact at Channel 9, local but with a huge following. If they take the story, it blows up statewide. Set it up." Meanwhile, Simone prepared a legal complaint backed by the mounting evidence. Statements from Sam and Diane, archived footage she pulled from residents, old police call logs tied to Brett's name. But something was missing. Proof the management was complicit, not just negligent. That night, her phone buzzed with a blocked number. She picked up. A man's voice. "You think you can smear this building and get away with it?" Simone froze. "You don't know who you're messing with. Drop it, or we drop you." The line went dead. She stared at the phone, hand shaking, adrenaline surging. Then she opened her laptop and hit send on the legal packet to the State Attorney General's office. The next day, she sat down with the Channel 9 reporter, Denise Morales, on a bench just outside the Crestview leasing office. The cameras rolled. Simone spoke calmly, clearly, but there was fire behind every word. "They didn't just hurt my son," she said. "They tried to erase it, intimidate us into silence. But this isn't about one family. It's about a system that's allowed people like Brett Harlan to abuse their power unchecked." When the segment aired that evening, the story spread like wildfire. More residents started speaking out. A retired Army vet from Building B revealed that he was once accused of loitering outside his own home by the same security team. A Filipino nurse shared how she'd been forced to show her ID 3 separate times in the parking garage. Within 48 hours, Simone received over 24 statements from tenants. She compiled them into an addendum for her complaint and began drafting a collective civil suit. But that wasn't all. Rick Nolan, the smug property manager, showed up at her door with 2 security guards. "I'm placing you under 72-hour notice," he declared. "On what grounds?" Simone asked. "Disturbing community peace, creating an unsafe environment," she smirked. "You might want to read your own building code. That clause doesn't exist." Rick's mouth twitched. "Fine. Then we'll escalate it." Simone leaned in. "Do that, please." Because as he turned and stormed off, he didn't see the tiny camera mounted above her door recording everything, including his threat. Later that night, Simone got another unexpected call, this time from the receptionist of a law firm downtown. "Ms. Pierce? I have a Mr. Gabriel Langston on the line. He says it's urgent." Simone paused. That name, Federal Civil Litigation Division. She'd worked with him years ago. She took the call. "Simone, bonjour." Gabriel's voice was low but urgent. "I saw your interview. I also saw the complaint you filed. The AG's office is reaching out. But I wanted to give you a heads up. Vanguard Protection just hired Roth and Emery. Those guys don't play defense, they attack." "Let them," Simone said, her voice cold. "I'm not backing down." Gabriel was quiet for a moment. "You might need backup." "I've got it. I'm not alone this time." After the call, Simone sat in silence, the apartment dim around her. This wasn't just about Jamal anymore. This was about every kid who'd ever been told they didn't belong, every mother who stayed quiet out of fear, every family who'd been pushed out, looked down on, or erased. She wasn't going to be another name added to that list, and in the dark her phone buzzed again. An email. Subject line, urgent. Building employee testimony. It was from a woman named Rita Thomas, former assistant to Rick Nolan. Simone opened the message and stared. I have copies of internal emails showing Rick and Brett planned the incident with your son as a deterrent example for other residents. Her breath caught. There it was, the smoking gun. The email sat open on Simone's screen, glowing like a loaded weapon. Subject, urgent. Building employee testimony. Attached, screenshots. PDFs, internal memos. Her hands trembled slightly as she clicked through them. The words leapt off the page. Use Jamal Pierce as a public reminder to others who think rules don't apply to them. Brett, make sure it's a clean takedown. No bruises, just scare him, cameras off. If the mother raises hell, threaten her lease. Simone pushed away from her desk, heart pounding. She stood there, staring into the apartment's silence, stunned at how deliberate it had all been. They hadn't just acted recklessly, they had planned it, targeted her son like he was some kind of message. And now she had the receipts. She called Leah. I've got it, Simone said, voice tight. The proof? The whole thing. Emails, logs, instructions. They tried to use my child as a warning. Leah didn't speak for a beat. Then, we're done playing nice. They called Gabrielle Langston. Within an hour, Simone was downtown, sitting across from Gabriel in a sleek law office conference room. She handed over a flash drive. Gabriel scanned through the files, his lips tightening with each click. This isn't just grounds for civil suit, he said slowly. This is coordinated targeting. It violates civil rights statutes, housing protections, child endangerment. Hell, even racketeering if we press the conspiracy angle. I want them taken down, Simone said. Not just Brett, not just Rick. Everyone who knew and did nothing. Gabrielle nodded. We'll file a federal injunction tomorrow. Emergency motion to freeze property management's ability to alter records. Then we file civil charges and refer this to the state's attorney's office. But that wasn't all Simone had planned. Later that night, she posted a new video. This time, she didn't just tell her story, she showed it. The emails, the screenshots, a side-by-side with the building's lease clause that guaranteed tenants protection from harassment and retaliation. This isn't about one bad security guard, she said into the camera. This is a system that allows people like Brett Harlan and Rick Nolan to terrorize families and hide behind paperwork. They thought I'd be too scared to fight back. They thought if they went after my son, I'd just run. They were wrong. The post hit 500,000 views in 12 hours. The hashtags were everywhere. Justice for, Jamal and fire, Rick now #Crestview, cover up. That morning, Simone was making breakfast when someone knocked at the door. She opened it to find a woman in her early 50s, black pantsuit, a press badge clipped to her belt. Hi, my name's Natalie Graham, investigative producer for WNBC. Do you have a few minutes? Simone hesitated, then stepped aside. Natalie didn't waste time. We've been watching your story unfold. My station wants to run an exclusive, not just a soundbite, a full exposé. We want to dig into Crestview's management practices, past complaints, lawsuits, settlements. Then let's do it, Simone said, because I'm done letting them control the narrative. While Natalie and her team got to work, Simone took Jamal out for ice cream. For the first time in weeks, he smiled like a kid again. You think they're gonna go to jail? He asked, chocolate dripping from his cone. Simone looked at him, heart heavy but proud. They're going to face everything they tried to avoid. But back at Crestview, something else was happening. Rick Nolan was in a meeting with Vanguard's regional director, a tall, stern woman named Donna Resnick. She was reviewing the news coverage and Simone's viral posts. Her face was tight with tension. "You didn't tell me there were written memos," Dana snapped. Rick tried to deflect. "We never thought she'd go this far." "She's a lawyer, Rick. A damn good one. She played you. You walked right into it." "She doesn't scare me." "She should," Dana said coldly, "because if she files federal, we're going down. I need someone to take the fall, and it's not going to be me." Rick's face fell. "You're cutting me loose? You're suspended pending investigation, effective immediately." Rick slammed a fist into the desk. "You're just gonna throw me under the bus?" Dana shrugged. "Call it what you want, but I'm not going to jail for your ego." Back at the Pierce apartment, Simone's inbox lit up again, this time from a familiar address. Rita.Thomas@crestview.mgmt.com. She clicked. "Simone, I've attached one final file. It's from a meeting I transcribed months ago. Rick said something you need to hear. You'll know what to do with it." Simone opened the audio file. Rick's voice crackled through. "If we let her win, others will think they can challenge us too. Sometimes you have to make examples out of the loud ones." Simone stared at her screen, pulse quickening. He wasn't just defending policy. He was setting a precedent, using families like hers as tools of intimidation. She forwarded the file to Gabrielle. Within minutes, Gabrielle replied, "Perfect. This nails intent. We're filing criminal." Simone leaned back in her chair. Rick thought he was untouchable. Now he was in freefall, and she had barely started. The hearing room was packed. News cameras lined the back wall, their lenses cold and steady. A court sketch artist flipped pages beside a pair of journalists from the New York Times and The Atlantic. Even Simone, who had stood before federal judges and congressional panels, felt her breath catch as she entered. This wasn't just any motion hearing. This was public, and it wasn't about her title or her past or her education. It was about her son, about Jamal, and about every black family who'd ever been told to sit down, shut up, or leave quietly. Gabrielle Langston leaned over and whispered, "They brought in Crestview's entire legal team. That means they're worried." Simone nodded once. "They should be." Across the aisle, Rick Nolan sat with his jaw clenched and his arms folded. Next to him was Dana Resnick, visibly shaken, whispering urgently to their attorney, a sharp-suited man who looked like he walked straight out of a corporate ad campaign. Judge Murillo entered, a woman in her 60s with a blunt bob and piercing eyes. She wasted no time. "We are here to address the emergency injunction and determine whether further criminal proceedings are warranted based on newly submitted evidence." Gabrielle stood. "Your Honor, what we have is a coordinated campaign by Crestview Management and its security subcontractor to harass, intimidate, and endanger tenants, specifically black tenants. We are presenting audio files, internal memos, and sworn testimony that directly implicate senior management in these violations." He pressed a button on the remote. The courtroom went quiet. Rick's voice filled the speakers. "If we let her win, others will think they can challenge us too. Sometimes you have to make examples out of the loud ones." Rick's face paled. Judge Murillo leaned forward. "Mr. Nolan, is that your voice on the recording?" I need to confer with my attorney." "We'll get to that," the judge said, icy. "Mr. Langston, continue." Gabriel played the next clip, an email thread where Brett Harlan had been instructed to scare Jamal, with camera blind spots mapped out and timestamps noted. The room felt like it shrunk. "Not only did they target a child," Gabriel said, turning to the audience, "but they weaponized their authority to silence dissent. Ms. Pierce isn't just a tenant, she's a mother who stood between a corrupt system and her son." Then the twist no one saw coming. Gabriel clicked one last slide. "Furthermore, Your Honor, we have evidence that this isn't the first incident of racially motivated abuse at Crestview Properties. We obtained a whistleblower report from another tenant, an elderly woman named Grace Matthews, who was evicted after filing complaints about harassment. This was 3 months ago. Same management, same tactics. Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Simone's eyes darted to Rick, whose hands had begun to shake. Dana's lips were pressed into a pale, tight line. The judge lifted her gavel. I'm granting the injunction. Crestview management is hereby prohibited from any retaliatory actions against tenants. The court is also referring this case to the State Attorney General's office for potential civil rights violations and criminal conduct. Outside, microphones were already waiting. But Simone wasn't thinking about cameras anymore. She was thinking about Grace Matthews. She found her later that afternoon on the porch of a tiny brownstone 10 blocks from Crestview, sitting on a worn wicker chair, sipping sweet tea like the chaos of the city had never touched her. You must be Simone, Grace said, smiling gently. I saw you on TV. You're the one who made the storm shake. I think we're just getting started, Simone said, sitting beside her. Why didn't you say anything sooner? Grace chuckled. When you get to my age, you pick your battles. But seeing what they did to your boy, it reminded me I've got more fight left. Simone took her hand. We're not going to stop. And they didn't. That evening, Gabriel received a letter from a junior employee inside Crestview. He read it twice, then called Simone. You need to hear this. This intern says they found a document, an off-the-books policy, a blacklist of tenants, tenants who filed complaints, tenants who were difficult. Jamal's name was on it, wasn't it? Simone asked. And yours, marked in red. Simone stared at the phone, her voice low. Then we go all the way. Rick Nolan had been reckless. Dana had been complicit, but now they were part of something even uglier, a pattern, a network of silent abuses meant to wear tenants down until they gave up and disappeared. Simone wouldn't disappear. She'd burn it all down first. And as the next morning's sun broke across Brooklyn, casting golden light over her apartment windows, Simone knew what she had to do next. Take this story from the courtroom to the Capitol, from whispers in boardrooms to full-blown public hearings. Let the country see what black families face when justice isn't just delayed, it's weaponized against them, and make sure those responsible would never forget the name Jamal Pierce. The private elevator groaned open at the top floor of the Crestview corporate building in Midtown Manhattan. The air was too clean, the kind you had to pay for, filtered, silent, controlled. Simone Pierce stepped into the marble-floored lobby, her heels clicking with intention, flanked by Gabriel Langston and 2 reporters from the Washington Post. Inside the glass-walled conference room, a dozen executives froze as the trio entered. There was no formal invitation. There was no warning. And yet, everyone in that room knew why she was there. Simone, whispered Gabriel just under his breath, you don't have to go this far if you're not ready. She didn't respond immediately. Instead, her eyes swept over the room, pausing on Rick Nolan. Disheveled now, his suit jacket off, shirt rumpled. He looked like he hadn't slept. I've been ready since the moment they laid hands on my son, she finally said, voice firm. Rick stood, trying to save face. This is private property. You have no right to barge in here with reporters. Simone raised her phone, clicked a button, and tossed it onto the table. The audio of Rick's damning words played once more. If we let her win, others will think they can challenge us too. A silence fell so heavy it made the air vibrate. I'm not here to fight for myself, Simone said, stepping closer. I'm here for every family you tried to bury under policies dressed up as procedure. For every black child who you labeled a threat before they could spell their name. The younger executives shifted uncomfortably. One woman, mid-30s, trembling fingers, began gathering her things. She wasn't going to sit in on this. I'm invoking the Fair Housing Act, Civil Rights Act, and the new state tenant protection reform. I'm opening a formal federal investigation, and I've already met with lawmakers who are ready to back me." Rick's face blanched. "You don't have the legal standing," Gabriel cut in. "Actually, she does. And we're filing for a full asset freeze this afternoon, including executive bonuses." One of the older board members, a man named Charles Vinton, raised a hand. "Ms. Pierce, Simone, we may have mishandled the situation, but this is excessive. Surely we can find a resolution." Simone turned her eyes on him, unflinching. "You think this is excessive? Do you know what excessive looks like? It's my child, 11 years old, being thrown against a wall by a grown man with a badge. It's being gaslit when we demand answers. It's being told to stay quiet, dead, while your people scrub footage and rewrite history." Another phone buzzed, then another. One by one, the executives began to look down at their screens. It was trending. Justice for Jamal had exploded across social media. Simone's testimony before the local council had been posted that morning. Video of the court hearing leaked. A former employee from Crestview's legal team had gone on record, confirming the existence of the tenant risk list, a blacklist of residents marked as problematic for demanding repairs, calling out racism, or simply asking questions. "I hope you enjoyed your comfort," Simone said, softer now, almost like a warning. "Because that era ends today." Rick, cornered, scoffed. "This isn't a TV show. You don't get to win just because you've got a few good lines and a sob story." "No," Simone said. "I win because I have truth, and receipts, and an entire community behind me now." Another voice joined from the doorway. It was Councilwoman Terry Wallace, flanked by 2 federal housing auditors and a DOJ representative. "Mr. Nolan," Terry said, "your operations have been flagged for potential housing discrimination violations. We're here to begin a formal review. I suggest you cooperate." Rick sat down hard. For once, he had nothing to say. 2 days later, Simone stood before a citywide tenants' town hall. The auditorium was filled wall to wall with families, advocates, and community leaders. She was no longer anonymous, no longer the quiet single mom in 8B. She was the face of the fight. "We always knew something was wrong," a woman whispered to her afterward, "but we didn't know how to say it out loud." "You just did," Simone replied. She walked back to her seat next to Jamal, who was busy scribbling in a sketchbook. He looked up at her and smiled. "Was that the lady from the government?" "Yep." "Did she come because of you?" "No," Simone said gently. "She came because of us." The next twist didn't come in a boardroom or courtroom. It came on live television. During a press conference with Crestview's interim management, a reporter stood and asked whether anyone at the company would be resigning over the scandal. To everyone's shock, Dana Resnick stepped forward. She was no longer polished. Her makeup was minimal, her voice shaky. "I knew what we were doing was wrong," she said. "I saw the blacklist. I approved tenant evictions, and I'm stepping down effective immediately. But I'm also cooperating fully with authorities, and I will testify against anyone who gave those orders." Simone watched the press conference from her kitchen table, tears quietly tracking down her cheeks. Jamal reached over and squeezed her hand. "Mom," he said, "you made them tell the truth." She didn't correct him. She just held on. Because after years of being unheard, unseen, and underestimated, someone finally listened. Not because she had power, but because she found her voice and used it like fire, the kind that didn't just burn buildings down, but lit the way for everyone still trapped inside. The auditorium of the Bronx Community Justice Center buzzed with an energy unlike anything it had held before. Rows upon rows of folding chairs were filled. Residents, journalists, lawyers, activists, city officials. On stage stood a row of panelists behind a long table draped in white linen. In the center, a name card read, "Simone Pierce, Civil Rights Advocate." But Simone wasn't seated. She was standing. I never wanted to be the face of anything, she began, voice steady but full of soul. All I wanted was a safe place to raise my son, a place where he could come home, eat dinner, laugh, make mistakes, and not be brutalized for how he looks. The crowd was silent, but when that got stolen from us, I didn't have the luxury of staying silent. I didn't fight Crestview management because I'm brave. I fought them because I didn't have a choice. A murmur of agreement rippled through the room. Some were nodding, some wiping away tears. And for those of you who still believe what happened to us was some rare mistake, let me be clear. It wasn't. It was a pattern, a system, designed to protect power and punish dissent. She held up a folder. Inside this are names, families, stories just like ours, tenants who were harassed, evicted, blacklisted, silenced. She placed the folder down. Not anymore. Later that evening, as twilight spilled over the Bronx skyline, Simone stepped onto her building's rooftop. Jamal sat beside her in a hoodie, swinging his feet against the railing, a sketchbook in his lap. They made it official, she said, handing him her phone. He read the headline aloud. Crestview management disbanded after federal review. Entire board resigns. His mouth fell open. You really did it, Mom. No, she smiled. We did. There was still damage. The trauma hadn't vanished. Jamal still hesitated before entering elevators. He still asked if security would be nice today. But something inside him had shifted. His back straighter, his voice firmer, his drawings bolder. Simone leaned over, watching him sketch. That's your protest art? He grinned. No, it's just a drawing of you, kicking someone's butt. She laughed. Not the polite kind, the deep, guttural kind she hadn't felt in years. Accurate, she said. The story didn't fade. It grew. A year later, Simone testified before Congress on housing discrimination and systemic tenant abuse. She helped draft what would later be called the Fair Tenants Accountability Act, protecting residents from retaliation by management companies and mandating independent review boards for any eviction disputes. She was interviewed on major networks, invited to think tanks. But she never forgot what started it all. Not the press, not the law, but a little boy's voice screaming in a stairwell, afraid and alone. She had made a promise that day, and she kept it. The final twist came not with a camera, but a letter. It was from Dana Resnick, the same woman who once tried to pay Simone off. Now, writing from a minimum security facility upstate. Simone, I think about that day in your apartment more than you'd believe. I still don't know why I offered you that deal. Maybe part of me was trying to bury what I knew would surface, but I've learned something in here. Truth always finds a way out. If you ever speak to Jamal about me, tell him I'm sorry, and tell him he was the start of my wake-up call. You were the rest. Respectfully, Dana Simone folded the letter and tucked it away. Not because she needed to remember Dana's apology, but because it was proof that systems didn't change from the top down. They cracked from within. And sometimes all it took was one mother kicking hard enough. As the screen fades to black, a single line appears. Real justice doesn't start in courtrooms. It starts in living rooms, stairwells, and hearts that refuse to stay silent. Then, over a soft instrumental track, Simone's voice returns. If you've ever been made to feel small, silenced, or invisible, know this, your voice matters. And when enough of us raise it, even the highest towers tremble. Like this story, subscribe to our channel for more powerful, true-inspired dramas. Hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to see it, and drop a comment below about what justice means to you. Because one voice can spark change, but a community that can burn the whole injustice down.